parlez français, il y a l'interprétation qui est disponible. Ne vous en faites pas, parler la langue dans laquelle vous êtes le plus confortable, entre français et anglais. Hein, je sais qu'il y a d'autres langues qu'on parle tous ici, mais entre français et anglais, s'il vous plaît, prenez la langue dans laquelle vous êtes le plus confortable. Je vois beaucoup de Sénégalais, j'aurais aimé vous parler Wolof, mais mon Wolof est très mauvais, donc on va se limiter au français. Et mes excuses par avance aux interprètes. Il m'arrive parfois de passer du français à l'anglais et inversement, mais je vais essayer de ne pas parler trop vite pour vous aider à suivre. Mais vraiment, mes excuses par avance si je le fais un peu trop souvent. La présentation en anglais, donc c'est plus simple que j'ai en anglais, plus simple pour moi, pardon, d'y aller en anglais. So, session 2 is about understanding data-driven advocacy. I'm sure you all know what this is. You might not be familiar with the term and maybe with the way we present it, but listening to this, I'm sure this will sound familiar and this will ring bell in relation with the work that you do and the expertise that you already have and you're bringing to this table. Next, please. All right, so before we start, we'd like that you share with us what is advocacy to you. How do you define advocacy in your own context? And also, why do you think you need data in that advocacy work that you do? You can either share in the chat like we've been doing, or one or two people can also unmute and share, really just one or two people. And ideally, those who haven't had the opportunity to share yet, what is advocacy to you in relation to your context? And why do you think you need data in your advocacy? I hope we all agree that you do need data. Now, why do you need data in your advocacy work? Let me check the chat as I speak. What is advocacy? How do you define advocacy in your own context? And why do you think you need data in that advocacy work? Let me see the hands. So I'm seeing in the chat. Oui. Sorry, did I interrupt someone? If you raised your hand and I'm missing it, please just unmute and share.
I can see. Oh, just okay. That's fine.
Can I come in?
Yes, please.
Okay, my understanding is advocacy is all about standing in for a cause or standing in for, especially the vulnerable group, because you understand there is a situation that these people, they don't have a voice. So you are standing in for them, like the advocates in the law courts, the lawyers, they put a case on behalf of their clients. So that's my simple understanding of advocacy. You are standing in for someone because there's a cause that you want to drive, because that person maybe is vulnerable, they don't have a voice. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I'm seeing the responses in the chat. Anybody else would like to share? Unmute and share.
Yes, I am Esther. I can also say that advocacy is sharing the concerns of maybe the community or a special group of people with the duty bearers, so that they are accountable, but again, they act on the issue that has been raised.
Thank you so much. There was a second part to the question, but I just read something that Amuku, I hope I'm not mispronouncing your name, something that they put in the chat. I need data for advocacy so that I understand the magnitude of the cause to advocate for, and then develop a structure on how to do it. And I think I also saw somewhere that we need data as evidence on the cause that we are advocating for. I just want to say that I find it interesting that most of us define advocacy as something you do for others. I think we can advocate, we can stand for ourselves also. Many of the issues that we advocate for, we are also concerned, and we might not be directly impacted, but I think we can also advocate for ourselves. Next slide, please. Now, what is advocacy? So just before I start, I'm saying this because I had to Google it myself. We're not trying to pretend we know everything and everybody here. Dr. Ritu Sharma is the VP, is the Vice President at CARE, the organization CARE. She works with CARE. She works in the US program on the policy advocacy. So she works directly with the US government. So that's who Dr. Ritu Sharma is. And this quote is from her. And she says, advocacy means putting a problem on the agenda. That's one thing. Providing a solution to that problem, and then building support for acting on both the problem and the solution. So this is important. The last bit is important. It's building support for acting not only on the problem, but really working also on the solution and how and the kind of solution that we want the duty bearer or the policy makers to take action on. Next, please. Now, what is data-driven? Just the previous one. Thanks. What is data-driven advocacy? So data-driven advocacy, again, I'm sure this is something you all do. You might not name it like this, you might not call it this, but this is something we all do because we all are aware that we need some kind of evidence in the work that we're doing, right? We can't just go out there and say we are here to advocate for this because we believe in this cause and this is how it should be. We need figures, we need evidence, and that's how data comes in. So data-driven advocacy is an approach used to influence the change that we want to see in the world. Data are very important in the advocacy process, and they are also a powerful tool that can be used to hold governments and people in power accountable. I think we'll skip the YouTube video, right? We can share the presentation afterwards, and people will watch the video on their own. But
yeah.
did we plan to watch the video right now?
No.
Or can we skip?
No, the videos and the links for further reading are tools when they get a presentation, so they can further engage with it.
All right. So we'll go to which. Here. I think there's one slide before this one.
Oh, yeah.
But you know what? I think this question should come after we've presented the cycle. Nene, please go back to the next one. I'd like to present. Yes, please. Thank you. So this is the advocacy planning cycle. It's not linear. Sometimes you start somewhere. Usually we start with identifying the issue. At least we want to know what exactly is the problem that we want to be solving or we want to find a solution for. And then all the other phases might not come in a linear way. We come to the analysis. Sometimes we start with identifying targets. We say, oh, we need to go directly to this person because they are the one in power. They are the one in a position to make the decision that we want. And then we come back to, okay, fine, before we go to them, we need objectives before we go talk to them, right? We need objectives and we need to define our message so it's really clear what exactly we want from them and from them specifically, because you don't want to enter a room and then the person you'll be telling, I completely agree with what you're saying, but what exactly am I supposed to do with this information? You need to define the message. So, so draw up advocacy plan, identify the issue, analysis, set objectives, identify targets, identify allies in your advocacy work, define the message, select the tools, the tactics that you want to use, plan for, and the tactics and the tools might also be related to the targets that you have. Not everything works with everybody, right? You need to adapt and you need to tailor the tool that you're using. Plan for monitoring and evaluation and draw up advocacy plan. So plan for monitoring and evaluation. And I know many people are always, all the many people I've met are always frustrated because they feel like they are not given enough importance. Their work is not given enough importance, because M&E, monitoring and evaluation, really is something that we think about at the end, as something that comes at the end when we've done everything else. While I think it should come at the beginning, right from the beginning, when we start drawing our plan, advocacy plan, we should already be thinking about how we're going to measure impact. So we know exactly what is working and what is not working. So in the course of advocacy plan, we are also able to change and we are able to adapt in view to the plan, the monitoring and evaluation plan that we had. So we don't have to wait until everything is done to then go back and try to remember what we did and how we did it. So now we can go back. Maybe people need this, but we can just go back to the question about which one we are familiar with. Lene, I'm sorry, I'm completely confusing you. So which one of the advocacy steps are you familiar with? If you need, we can go back to this slide, but the question is, again, you can either share in the chat or unmute and share. Which of the advocacy steps are you familiar with? Oh, okay. I'm also checking if I'm not missing any hand here. Je vois beaucoup de francophones, hein. Je ne vous entends pas, je vois beaucoup de francophones. Peut-être que je me trompe, mais je vois des noms dans le chat, je suis sûre que vous parlez français comme moi. Donc, n'hésitez pas à intervenir. J'insiste sur le fait que les francophones interviennent parce que je sais que ce qui se passe dans nos contextes n'est pas forcément.
I insist that the French speakers also take the floor.
Oh, why am I hearing the interpreters? Wait.
The interpretation seems to have gone away. I don't know why.
Let me check.
There are also responses on the chat, and some people are saying they are familiar with all of them.
Yes. Most of them, yes. We have experts in the room. That's exactly what Coretta was saying at the beginning. We have experts in the room, and we're here to really share and discuss this. Now, this is not a lecture at all. All of them, most of them, yes, great. And someone said the connection is not good.
Hold on, the French language interpretation seems to have dropped. We need to check it before we lose.
Is it back now?
And now?
I know when you
can speak, I will be looking into the French.
Nene, if we proceed, the French speakers
it's still not working.
Yeah, the French speakers will not. Yes.
It's still not working. I'm one of the interpreters, as I've not been assigned as interpreter.
Juste 2 minutes. Je pense que les francophones ont perdu l'interprétation ne marche plus. Donc, on va attendre jusqu'à ce que ce soit rétabli pour que les francophones puissent nous suivre aussi. Donc, donnez-nous juste 1-2 minutes. On va rétablir l'interprétation.
You can try now.
Oh, is it working now?
Sorry, the French interpreter, can you, because it flashed on the screen that we lost the French interpretation. Because I have the slides up, I can't see everything that is happening. So the interpreter can let us know if it's back up.
I'm seeing a thumb up.
It's back.
Yes, it's working now.
It's working. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So let's go to the next slide now. All right. So we've seen the advocacy cycle, and it's great that you're all familiar. Most of you are familiar with all of them or most of them. And I saw somewhere that is the issue is how to apply this and not really about knowing it. Well noted. So how data fit into the advocacy cycle? First, data will help you identify the issue because it provides clear evidence about the problem or the issue that you're trying to tackle. For instance, a quantitative example would read like 4 out of 10 girls are out of school due to COVID-19 every day. So a qualitative example would be COVID-19 severely affected girls. Like Coretta was saying, you need a bit of both. Once you said COVID-19 severely affected girls, your advocacy becomes more powerful when you add to it that is 4 out of 10 girls. It makes a difference. So first, identifying the issue. The second and third, analysis and setting objectives. So in the process of analyzing issues to address, we use data to demonstrate the urgency of the issue. This one is important because there are many issues. There are many things happening around the world. When you work on a topic, all of us, I think we all do that. When we work on a specific topic, we want the policymaker or we want our targets to make it a priority. We want to make them believe this is a priority and this is something that they should be looking at and let everything out of the, we want everything else out of the way. And we would basically go to them saying, this should be your priority, your number one problem now. But why is that? Why is that out of everything else that is happening in the world? So you need data helps you, and you need data to demonstrate the urgency of the issue and to make it a priority, not only for you because you like that issue, we make it a priority. It makes it easier for you to actually convince your target to make it a priority. And for instance, data will help you establish that who is most affected by the problem and why they are affected. Setting objectives also, data helps you set clear and smart, smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Data helps you make set clear and smart objectives for advocacy by helping you identify the magnitude of the problem and what impacts that you want to achieve. Usually you find the same issue, but different impact and different objectives depending on the people, depending on the organization. It's absolutely fine that you take only one of the impacts and be working on that specific one. Data also help you identify targets and allies. Compelling data will help in mobilizing the right stakeholders that will support your advocacy ask, and will also help you identify your potential allies by showing who is most affected. To this, I'd like to add that you might want, in really difficult context, to also identify who is not your ally. So now it depends on your own strategy, your own strategy, how much time and energy you have really. Some people will say don't even go after the non-allies because they will never be on your side, and others will say there are non-allies who could be convinced otherwise. So you see, depending on the strategy and how much resources, and including human resources, that you have, if you want to also try and go and convince those non-allies, especially if the non-allies happen to be people in power that you need to make a specific decision. You decide if you still want to go to them, or you only work with people who are already your allies. Data help define the message. Including data and evidence will strengthen your advocacy message, and it will make it more credible and compelling. I don't know about you, but all the years that I've been working on girl issues, women's rights, there's always that assumption that, oh, you're doing that because you're a woman too, and it's just that it's a personal issue. Of course, it's a personal issue, but it doesn't make it less important. But data will help you strengthen your advocacy and make it more credible, and make it, you don't want to sound like this is just your own personal problem and you don't have evidence to back it up. Now, drawing up an advocacy. Oh, I'm seeing in the chat, interpretation. Is it working? Did we lose interpretation again?
No, it's working.
It's working. Iba, pardon. Monsieur, madame.
Personnellement, je parle l'interprétation, s'il vous plaît.
Ok. Vous voyez où choisir l'interprétation, parce que je vois que ça marche pour les autres. Juste les 3 petits points en bas de l'écran. Ensuite, vous cliquez sur interprétation.
Oui.
C'est ça. Vous cliquez sur interprétation et un petit globe là, vous cliquez sur interprétation et ensuite vous choisissez la langue qui vous convient.
Bon, je n'arrive pas à voir. Attendez.
Vous
Bon,
cliquez sur
oui, bon.
Vous avez sous-titres, vous avez tableau blanc, chez moi en tout cas, vous avez sous-titres, vous avez tableau blanc, vous avez interprétation.
Bon.
Oui, certainement, il n'y a pas la version récente de Zoom. Peut-être ça aussi, c'est une possibilité, ce qui fait que
Ça
la version n'apparaît pas.
Ah. Comment on fait?
Information sur la réunion, transférer, afficher les sous-titres.
Vous n'avez pas interprétation?
Non. Je l'avais, mais c'est disparu maintenant. Je ne sais pas qu'est-ce qui se passe. J'ai cliqué sur le plus.
Vous pouvez essayer de vous déconnecter et reconnecter, voir.
Oui, peut-être ça. J'ai enregistré, masqué, note, arrêter la diffusion, application, connecter le son, transférer vers la salle, information sur la réunion, paramètres.
Vous avez en bas, il y a l'image du globe terrestre. Vous avez ça chez vous?
Globe?
Le globe terrestre. Oui, un cercle.
Le cercle, bon, j'ai ici un cercle avec un I à l'intérieur. Bon,
oui, c'est ça.
OK. Bon, copier le lien. Bon, il n'y a pas...
Non, essayez de vous déconnecter, de quitter la
Voilà.
réunion.
Continue, comme ça je vais voir comment... Voilà. Est-ce que je pourrais me reconnaître? Je vais me reconnecter, voir. Merci.
So, sorry, did I help you define the message and also help you draw an advocacy plan? Because using data will improve your credibility, the credibility of the work, your advocacy work, and also better justify a call to action. That's what I was saying at the beginning is, there's no more interpret. What's happening? I think we lost interpretation again. And someone said it seems to be reversed. So when they are on the English channel, they still hear French.
Okay. You can still continue. I will work on it.
Okay, all right, it's back. All right. We can move to the next slide, please. All right. Now, we've talked about the kind of data, what is data and the kind of data that we have. We've talked about data-driven advocacy, how data is important in your advocacy work. Now we're going to be focusing on your data sources in this session 3. Please do write questions also in the chat. If you have questions, you can also write in the chat and we'll look at it when we're done with these sessions. Now, as gender advocates, it's really important that you understand and you know where we can source data and evidence for advocacy. So usually the data source categories are 2, the secondary, oh God, this is not my language, you can tell, secondary data sources and primary data sources. So examples of data sources that I'm sure you all know: policies, the laws, research reports, the surveys, policy briefs, interviews, and journals. Next, please. Sorry. We'll start with the secondary one. We'll end with the primary one, but I'm sure you already know the primary one. So we'll start with the secondary data sources. This is data that is collected by someone else than the one who's actually using it. So secondary data sources are already researched, documented, and easier to access. Next, yes, please. Thank you. So important sources of secondary data that we all use a lot. So government documents and official statistics. For instance, national censuses of population and housing, national household surveys, national employment and labor statistics. Why is this an important source? Is because they have the potential to produce reliable data to use, because national statistical offices and governments, they have legal authority and responsibility. Now, I know that in many of our African countries, this comes with the question of trust, that you don't trust the data that your country produces. You can use the data, you can still use the data that they produce and then complement it with other global or regional or international sources. But in the work that you do, it's important to still show your country or show your governments or show your officials that you're using that exactly what themselves they produce, meaning that somehow they are already aware that this is a problem and you're only using what they're putting out themselves. Because I know that spontaneously we tend to go to international sources. Now, international sources usually refer to all the data sources from outside of the country. You have the World Bank, UN agencies, UN Women, for instance, that we use a lot, UNFPA, bilateral organization that, like you said, the UK DFID, UK Aid, but also Economic Commission like ECOWAS or SADC in Southern region. International non-government and non-for-profit organization Plan International, Save the Children, and even the private sector, the data that they produce, Facebook, Twitter, BBC, for instance. So these international bodies often have an interest in data, the resources and capacity. They have the resources, they have the capacity to collect, to compile, and to produce. And like I was saying, you can use this to complement available national data, or when data is not available locally, and that happens a lot, that it wouldn't be available locally, that then you can use this to replace. You can use this to replace the non-available data. Other data sources, academic institutions, and also national non-governmental sources. So coming from the country, but not from the government itself. So academic institutions, you have academic and subject-specific journals, articles, and even student research papers and theses. The journals generally contain reports of original research by experts in some specific fields. And the national non-governmental sources, you have NGOs, for instance, in civil society, they produce research reports, surveys, policy briefs, articles, and posters that you can use. And these are really important sources of data at the local level, because many of the NGOs, I'm sure many of the organizations that you work with, they work in communities. Many of those international sources do not go as far as you go. They not go into the communities and really talk to the first and most affected people. So this is something that again can complement and go more in detail, provide you with more in detail data that you can use. They work in community, and most of the time they interact with community members, and they have a better understanding of the realities of that at that specific level. Next slide, please. Yes. Now, primary data sources include all the data that you collect directly from participants to analyze or use firsthand. If after this the session, we send you questions or we send you a survey to see, what you thought about the session, what worked well, what didn't, what you would have liked to hear or see more, this is primary data coming directly from you. And it can be, like Coretta said, it can be qualitative, it can be quantitative, it can include data from data collection method, it can be surveys, it can be usually surveys, but it can be interviews, it can be speeches, it can be focus groups, for instance. I'm not seeing any question in the chat. I'm trying to read all of your comments, but please, if you have questions, you can also put them in the chat. Ok, Monsieur Iba, vous êtes de retour avec nous. Très bien, c'est super. Merci. Et je vais repasser la parole à Coretta pour continuer avec la session 4.
Thank you so much, Titi, for handing over to me so nicely and swiftly. We would like to pause here to reflect on the data sources we have learned, and we would like you to share your experiences. How have you engaged with any of these data sources? what experiences have you had when you have engaged with these specific data sources, any of the ones we mentioned, especially the secondaries. We'll take comments in the chat, and 3 participants can unmute and share with us in terms of the government data, the international data, and even the NGO levels of data. And any questions? We've been talking a lot till now. So any questions, any reflections, any reactions before we proceed? Okay, so in the interest of time, I'm not seeing any hand. Nene, are you seeing any hands, or Titi, are you seeing any hands?
No. Yes. Can I speak?
Yes, please. Ismail, go ahead.
Yes, as I spy, since I'm representing feminine in terms of my physical challenge, what do we call a person with disability. So I would like to ask, in Africa, women and girls, those who are special, need, especially those who are with a disability, they are facing a lot of challenges in terms of gender and also GBV and also FGM. So they need more awareness. So how can we carry out activities which can support them and give them more comfortable life?
Thank you so much for sharing with us. Any other experience to share with us? Okay.
I can go?
Nene? Okay, we can proceed. Yeah, you can go. You can go. Yeah, go ahead.
You asked about the experience with data, and I'm
Yes,
sharing about the government data, secondary data, whereby sometimes you want to do referencing to the government records data. For example, here in Kenya, we have the Kenya demographic data that is done after every number of years. For example, the current one this time is year 2022. Maybe I would want to have the 2025, but it is not done that frequently by the government. So sometimes my experience has always been a bit frustrating when I want to use the very, very current data. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. Sometimes accessing these surveys, which take time and a lot of money to do, they don't come regularly, they don't finish on time, they finish and they are hiding the data or they are sitting on it. That can also be a challenge with that kind of data. Key data do you recommend for tracking menstrual health? Menstrual health will definitely be in the demographic and health survey. Depends on the country. If you give us the country, we will further help you and we'll discuss that. So let's now talk about, so we talked about these sources of data, and we've talked about, so we know the government sources, the international sources, and the local sources. Now let's come home to our specific issue and our topic for today, which is elimination of violence against women. So when we think of this topic, where can we find data specific with elimination of violence against women at the global level? If your advocacy issue is something you are doing at the global level, where can we find this data at the regional level and at the local level? So before we do that, because a lot of these before we do that, because a lot of these data points use a concept, I'm going to briefly talk about a concept of indicators, because when we go to these data points, we just don't see issues there. We see something we often call indicators. So what are indicators? So indicators are measures that show how well we have performed or how much progress we have made towards achieving a certain outcome. So when we talk about ending violence against women and girls, how close are we or how far are we to achieving the goal of ending violence against women? So, and any measure that gives us that ability to track that is an indicator. For it to be an indicator, it has to be observable. We have to be able to observe it. We have to be able to measure it. We are 30% towards it. We are this far towards it, we are this close to it, we are very, very far away, or it's not achievable. And we have to be able to show change, be it quantitative or qualitative indicators. Whichever the indicator, we have to be able to show how it is moving and changing. And often in these data sets or data points we are going to talk about, we also talk about indices or index. What is an index? When we talk about an index, we talk about any statistic, any number or any measure that brings together multiple indicators. So we are thinking of ending violence against women. If we want to look at the whole idea of having violence, ending violence against women, and we want to measure how close we are to ending violence against women, we can't use just one single indicator a lot of the time. We can't just say the frequency of it occurring or this. We need to put together multiple data points and multiple things. So when we bring them all together and create that one number or one composite indicator that explains how well we are doing towards achieving our goal of ending violence against women, we say it's no longer an indicator, but it becomes an index because it pulls together more than one indicator. So now let's look at the global level. Once more, like I said, in these slides, when we share it with you, all the links, you can see that there's underlined. Everything we are sharing here is active link. So you can literally just click it and it will take you straight to the data that we want to look at. And once more, we are also focusing on the secondary data sources. We hope to engage with you later and more into details, and probably we'll talk about the primary data sources and a few things. This is our introductory session. So first of all, when we talk about the global space, which are the most relevant data sources we'll find when we want data related to ending violence against women? UN Women Data Portal is a very, very good one. In the interest of time, I would have clicked and opened it so that we see some of the indicators there, and we'll do that with one of the data sources here, but won't do for all of them. So the UN Women Data Portal will track government measures, laws, policies, services, and even budgets related to ending violence. How much is the government spending on this issue? What are the laws in the country that talk about this issue? Is it even a crime? In some countries, some elements of violence against women and girls are not criminalized. In marital rape is a big one that many countries haven't worked towards it. And even the nature, some countries don't even have a definition for it. Then we can talk about the WHO data portal, which is dedicated to, it's a database because it's the WHO and they do a lot of health-related and prevalence studies. If you want to know the prevalence of or the incidence of any of these, they are very, very reliable in terms of intimate partner violence and non-partner sexual violence. There's a lot more indicator here. Someone already mentioned the demographic and health survey. The demographic and health survey is also a major platform. It's a cross-country government initiative, and the beauty about the DHS, similar to even the UN Women and the WHO, but the DHS is a survey-based one, so it actually goes and acts. So when we talk about our previous data types of data or sources of data we talked about, the UN Women will have government data and sometimes will have survey-based data. They will have data from institutions also, WHO also, but the DHS is actually a survey-based data where they actually use questionnaires to collect this. UNICEF is also a good source of data on ending violence against women, and it's always very, very good. You go to UNICEF itself, their data portal, you go to the mixed data portal, and we are able to, at a glance, look at cross-country comparison. Sometimes even their summary pages help us to arrive at conclusions. And another data portal globally that is very useful for us is Together for Girls. And we'll see in our data examples, if we had spoken about this, you see that most of the examples we use from our data when we talked about the different forms of data came from all of these, UN Women, WHO, and Together for Girls, because we want to illustrate that these are the data sources at the global level. The global level, we dealing with issues at the global level, we can't collect the data ourselves, we can't do anything, and we have to rely on what exists. And these are all reliable sources. Then we come to the region. We're talking about Africa regional. We are talking about Southern Africa and East Africa. We see the UN Women Africa have the data.
Hello?
Yeah?
Hello? I'm requesting to be assigned as an interpreter. This is Wero.
Okay.
Reassigned, please.
Nene,
Your name?
Wero, be assigned, please.
Okay.
Are we ready to go?
I've not yet been assigned. I'm waiting.
Okay. No problem.
Can you just speak again so I can directly identify you?
Yes, this is Interpreter Wero. Interpreter Wero.
Kindly put on the chat box. That's gonna be easy. Thank you.
Hello? Am I good to go?
Yes.
Okay. So when we come to the regional level in Africa, in Southern and Eastern Africa, the UN Women Africa data portal is there. The Afrobarometer, it's a survey because when we talk about ending violence against women, we often think of it as health issue and numbers, and we actually do not think so much of an organization like the Afrobarometer. But the Afrobarometer has a lot of data on perceptions. They do a lot of perception-based data. One of the the data points we use for qualitative data up there is the Afrobarometer data on the perceptions and the views of South Africans about. And the beauty about the Afrobarometer, similar to the DHS, is the fact that the Afrobarometer conduct these surveys across the whole continent. So you can easily take the data for South Africa, Kenya, and Uganda and compare them and use it to make a very, very strong case. UNICEF also has their SADC portal, and they have data for violence against women. And the regional mix, the regional DHS is when you take the individual country level GHS, some of them have regional reports. Sometimes we can combine the various DHS together and get a regional perspective. So when we talk about the regional data, this is what we think of. Now we'll pause here for, as I said, we are all training. So I want us to share in the chat or unmute, 4 people unmute ourselves and share with us in your own local context, what are some data sources that you have observed for violence against women and girls? So you can post it in the chat and then they look out for hands. We can take up to 5 people to share. Please mention your country or even your region or even your local. So the level at which you work. If you work at the sub-regional level, you can say SADC. If you work at the Eastern Africa regional level, you can say it. Or if you work at the country level, you can give the country and let us know some local data sources, for violence against women and girls. Sorry, was my question clear?
Yes, it's clear.
Please, the interpreter is asking to be reassigned.
No, it's working.
Okay, so at your local levels, I can start with some from South Africa, Southern Africa, then I can also start with some. Okay, we have Senegal. Ibaba has already shared with us Senegal. There is the Afrobarometer. I can go whilst we wait for people to show by hand. In South Africa, we have the Afrobarometer also is here. And we have a government. Okay. So someone is unmuting. Go ahead. Go ahead. You have the floor.
Bon, pour le Sénégal, bon, nous utilisons par exemple les données de l'ANSD C'est l'agence qui travaille sur les statistiques et la démographie au Sénégal. Et également, bon, Afrobaromètre aussi, il y a une section très dynamique au Sénégal qui travaille sur les données. Bon, ça, c'est un indicateur quand même, bon, un pourvoyeur de données est très intéressant et bon, bien travaillé. Bon, également, il y a aussi, bon, le travail des OSC, les organisations de la société civile, qui travaillent qui produisent des rapports et à travers ces rapports, bon, nous utilisons beaucoup ces données. Voilà, bon, on peut grosso modo ce que je voulais dire pour le Sénégal. S'il y a d'autres Sénégalais qui sont là, ils peuvent ajouter. Merci.
Thank you so much for sharing with us those data sources from Senegal. We have Kenya, we have DHS, Country Health Reports, we have UN Women Africa, we have Humanity Index for Nigeria. Anyone else wants to share with us by speaking or muting? Someone who hasn't spoken already. One big thing, the reason why when we talked about the data sources, we refer to the government data sources is that in a lot of times when we work, sometimes we disregard government data sources. So in South Africa, a big open government data source that we often regard is police reports and court reports. They are an amazing data source for cases of violence against women and girls, for example. So, and yes, public policy. We have some research institute being shared here in Kenya. We can take one verbal oral submission and we move on to the next slide.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
I won't take so much time, but in my personal work that I do in the humanitarian sector, we often rely on and we often upload database, not on the government systems, but in the 5W, which is in the nonprofit sector where we update our reach, and also other organizations and NGOs as well update the beneficiaries list. And even though that does not target violence against women, it's thematic sector based. So in our researches, we usually rely on that to filter that Ethiopia and then the thematic sector of GBV and then access those data. And similarly, there are platforms in the UN agencies. But here in Ethiopia, in our case, the government agency have publicly available data, but these data are not up to date. Even in my last research, the most accessible one was 2022. So that's an issue. So we usually rely on the nonprofit sector and their reporting mechanisms. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. So I hope we are compiling the list. Someone is compiling the list for us so that whenever we work in any of these countries, we will know. Nene, can you share with us any data sources for Mali for violence against women that come to mind, if any do? The team members, if anybody wants to share anyone that hasn't been mentioned here also. We want to have at the end of this a comprehensive national database for these indicators.
From our side, let me just speak in French. Pour le Mali, ce que nous utilisons, c'est généralement les données de l'UNICEF. Et il y a également l'enquête démographique de santé EDS que nous utilisons. Et cette recherche est lancée chaque 5 ans. Et c'est une base de données que l'État gère en collaboration avec les agences des Nations Unies que nous exploitons généralement. Donc, c'est en majeure partie les deux grandes sources de données sur les questions de violence basées sur le genre, de mariage d'enfants et tout ce qui concerne la femme, la santé de la reproduction humaine.
Thank you so much, Nene, for sharing. And we will then move to the final. Now we talked about global, regional, and even national and local level data. once we talked about these data sources, there's a key thing that we have to talk about, which is data gaps and accessibility. Where is the data and how easily it is for us advocates to access it? Once Maureen kicked us off by saying data and what we do, elimination of violence, the topic itself, the theme we are touching on in data are extremely political. What are data gaps? Because of the very, very political nature of both these themes, data and elimination of violence against women, there is often the issue of data being used in these spaces to advance different agendas and spread misinformation. So who holds the data, where the data, and who does the data is very, very important. And in a lot of the cases for these topics we talk about, violence against women and girls, what do we observe? Data on specific issues that are critical and of interest because of the political nature of it or the prejudices against that particular group. There is no data available. And this is the situation. I know for us as advocates who work in this area, we have encountered it many, many times. And it's a key issue we advocate against. And the issue of data gaps is actually very, very prevalent in what we do. So we want you to highlight, and one issue whenever we are advocating for data and on violence against women or ending violence against women, we need to advocate for is to fill data gaps on this issue and make the data on the issue accessible. I will skip the next section and we will deal with it after our break in the interest of time. So just let me do a little bit of work. So we want to finish this half of our discussion by looking at some key issues because of the area we are talking about. And I keep saying that it doesn't even matter with the area. Once we're dealing with data, we are dealing with information, we are dealing with people, we need to be ethical about how we do it. So we want to just touch on a few principles of ethics and a few principles of survivor-led approaches we need to use, because sometimes when we use, especially when we use secondary data, we do not see the survivors, we do not interact with them. So we sometimes forget that irrespective of whether we are interacting with survivors or people who are affected by it, we still need to be ethical. So we will just highlight the principles of ethics we want to use, we want you to be aware of. Then we'll talk about survival, how we can make our work in data-driven advocacy. The first key thing with ethics, because you won't have your ethic books with you everywhere you go. You won't have your slides and presentation with you everywhere we go. But I always tell everybody we work with that the first principle here is to do no harm. Once we establish and ground ourselves in this principle, we can work and respond to issues as they happen. You are in field, you have never anticipated it. An ethics guide has never told you what to do when you are faced in this situation. I need you to pause and go back to the issue. Does this decision, does this issue, does the choice I make on whether or not I'm using this data for my advocacy put someone in, exposes someone to harm or risk? If it does, you stay away, because the first principle I need us to guide ourselves with in terms of ethics is the principle of doing no harm. Now, to guide us towards doing no harm in the space of violence against women and girls, what are some key behaviors we have to do? We have to ensure that participation, whether it's by interview or it's by even using some, is by voluntary participation. We need to ask people, we need to clearly seek their consent, and we need to seek their consent by speaking to them in a language in which they understand. There is no point giving a consent agreement to someone who cannot read and ask them to sign and say, I have informed consent. And for the work we do, the consent mustn't just be given at one point. It has to be ongoing consent. What do I mean by ongoing consent? You ask the person at the beginning of the study and they said, yes, I'm happy to participate in the study. Halfway through the work or halfway through talking to them, they say, no, I'm not interested. I'm worried about this. You don't push the person. You allow them to step back and clearly explain. Confidentiality. in the issues of violence against women and girls, a lot of these issues are extremely sensitive. We want to make sure that we are keeping people's data secure, we are keeping the data in a private space, and we are not exposing the people we are talking about, be it a community or individuals, to any risk. Safety planning, where we access the data, where we meet, what kind of data we access. And now when we talk about this, we want to talk about it for both ourselves as advocates. Sometimes advocates are risking their own without knowing they are risking their own self in the interest. Doing no harm in ethics means you are doing no harm to yourself and your participants and the people you advocate for. Titi drew attention to the fact that a lot of us, I advocate for gender equality, not for anybody else, but for myself first, because I do want equality too. So we make sure that we access it at a safe timing. A common thing, if any of us have been engaged in collecting data on the DHS, which I used to do previously, was the fact that when we want to talk about women's sexual histories, want to talk about questions like abortion, we make sure we are talking about it at a time where their partners are not necessarily in the house. Because what do you think happens when you go and ask somebody's wife who didn't know that when they were 18 years or when they were 20 years, they did abortion? If you have committed abortion before, all of a sudden we keep getting data points that say nobody in the community has done abortion, and we don't know why we are getting this kind of data. It's because we didn't do safety plan. We didn't make sure the timing was good enough. The next thing we want to talk about is accountability. To make sure we are not doing harm and to hold ourselves to these things we are doing. We are not leaving it by chance. We are saying that we need to be accountable. A lot of time, ethics review processes are tedious. I had a study where we had 2 months of waiting for ethical review. I won't mention any countries here, but we're working in certain countries, and some people working in those countries said, no, here, you just go ahead. They literally like just go ahead with your work. Ethics, it's a money-making. I was like, nope, we are not talking about this without a proper ethical review process. That is the only way we make sure we are not only doing no harm, but we are accountable to the people we work with and engage with. Now, let's talk about the issue of survivors and how can we be survivor-centered in what we do, because the topic we talk about is very sensitive and it's topics that affect ourselves and people we love and people who are vulnerable in general. So survivor-centered approaches make sure that we protect and we respect the dignity of survivors of violence against women whenever we engage with them, even if we are advocating for them. There's no point advocating for someone you are disrespecting. If you're advocating for yourself, you will not disrespect yourself. So the first issue we want to talk about is whenever you are doing data-driven advocacy, we want you to respect the dignity of all survivors, believe them, and avoid judgmental language. And this is not just when they are in front of you and they are looking at you. You finish, you look at the data, you go and you're going to write, and you're thinking of writing something. Pause and think, this thing I'm writing, does it respect the dignity of all survivors? Not only when they are in front of us, but even when they are away from us. Also, we need to make sure survivors decide when they want to share and when to stop. We know as advocates, we talked about quantitative data and qualitative data. We have the numbers, but we need real life experiences to tell our stories. Without real life experiences, they probably won't believe us. Where will we find that survivor who has, so we get an exciting story and we're like, we are going with it. This person X experienced this and we are going with it. Respect their decision on when to stop and if they don't want to stop. This is very critical. Despite we do not want to do harm when we are trying to solve a problem. Then trauma-informed practices. Even when someone wants to share, we want, and that's why we talk about the ethics process. The ethics process helps us recognize who is vulnerable and who is not vulnerable. It doesn't matter if the person wants to share or not. We need to recognize distress. We need to recognize topics that may be re-traumatizing or distressful to survivors, and we need to work with that. When you can, and these studies have higher levels of ethics. So when you go through your ethics approval process right, even in terms of writing just a report, it will protect survivors and yourself from making this mistake. When you don't need that data and it is re-traumatized, you just say, I will not collect this data. We need to tell these stories, but we don't need to tell these stories if it harms the very people we are working to protect. Frame the data as amplifying voices and not extracting. We are feminists, first of all, before we are advocates, before we are researchers, or we are for some of us, we are feminists together with being advocates. But whatever we do, we need to make sure we are not being extractive in when we deal with these issues. We don't want to go to survivors, take from them, take, and never give back. And finally, we need to be culturally sensitive, to the lived reality. Sometimes you go into a community and you do not understand the rules, you do not understand the cultural norms that exist. So, and as feminists, we are always, as feminists, as people who work on violence against women, we know a big issue we struggle with is cultural norms and how norms affect the issues we talk about, because our issues are intricately interlinked with cultural norms, and we make the mistake of forgetting our cultural sensitivity because we are so passionate about this issue. No matter how strong we feel about it, we want to be. You cannot go and upset people or survivors and still expect them to walk the journey with you. So we want to adapt our approaches. We are not saying you shouldn't do what is right or what is expected of you, but we want you to adapt the approaches and the context to the intersectional realities of people. They live with it. You will come and go, you will tell their story, but at the end of the day, they have to find a way to go on. And we need you. Survivor-centered approaches are the only ways we can do that. Now, finally, we'll just touch on a few safeguards that will help us. We are all thinking about everything that will make sure that we are being as survivor-centered as possible. We put a few of these in our heads. We don't ever think about it. Data minimization. If you don't need the data, don't anticipate it. Don't say, what if I'm here? What if, let me take a picture of it. Let me do this. If you do not need the data, do not collect it. You went with an issue. We talked about the advocacy cycle. You went with a problem. You know what the problem is. You know the data towards that problem. If the data you are going to collect will not address the problem, don't. First of all, there is no point collecting data that will sit in the drawers, your drawers, and be dusty, because this is not the data related to the issue you were dealing with. And you just collected it because you were there. I might as well collect it. So there is no point. It is not respectful to survivor, and it is not survivor-centered to just collect data for collection's sake. Nobody is just a data point. We need to be careful. Data minimization. We know we don't get data often, so when we see it, we want to collect it, but you need to make sure, is this data relevant for my issue? Is it necessary before we collect it? Anonymization. We want to remove all identifying details from our data as early as possible, even if we are using a survey, even if we are using first-hand data. When I say identifying details, there's a mistake of, I remember one data collection experience in which someone went and was reporting on it. Now, in this community, there was only one big Christian church. They didn't report the person's name, they didn't report the person's age, but in the report, they were like, the pastor of the big church said X, Y, and Z. We haven't anonymized. So we tell people that anonymization doesn't mean just taking away their names. If even that person has an identifying scar or an identifying characteristic that you mentioned to, he's the only one who wears blue dresses. Don't go and say the person who wears blue dresses. We want you to truly anonymize. When you're anonymizing, read it again and say, when I read this document, the president of the republic, there is only one president. All fingers point to Cyril Ramaphosa. So we want you to make sure that when you are taking anonymized, you take away all potential descriptors. And finally, we don't want this to happen. We don't expect this to happen, especially in data on violence against women and girls. But we need you to clearly establish, be it using data that is sitting there already or data that you are collecting now, clearly establish protocols for when one of these things are breached, be it your ethics issue, be it confidentiality, be it anonymous. If something happens, how do I immediately react in a way that does no harm to my respondents? I will pause here for us to take any questions, any reactions, any reflections before we do a set of 2 reflection exercises. Then we will take a short break and come back for a practical activity. So I'll pause here. So we take any questions. I know we have said a lot. We were all talking, but we still talk more than you. So we need you to talk any reflections, any specific questions that we haven't handled. Then we take these reflection questions before we come back.
I just unmute and ask?
Yes. You can show by hand or you can unmute and ask. I'm not seeing. So Nene and Titi are in the team.
Okay. Okay, I raised my hand. Anyways, I have a quick question.
Bonjour.
It's regarding to
Hi.
data minimization. This is from personal experience.
Bon, moi, j'ai
Obviously,
peut-être.
data anonymization and the protection and dignity of the victims is very essential. And so long as I maintain the anonymity and so long as I make sure that the data I'm collecting is not breachable and safe, then how far does data minimization go? Because I can be there and thinking not only about the programs and the support that my advocacy work is providing now, but I can also be thinking of future opportunities of advocacy. And if data is safe and if data is anonymous, why not have a well-rounded, in-depth data collected, not on a only need to have basis, but what about data that would be insightful and that would be enriching for the research? I hope that was clear.
Thank you so much. That is very clear. It's a thing we have as researchers all the time. We can take up to 2 or 3 and then we will address it. We are there now. The data is there. The participants are there. Why don't we collect it? Any other question? Okay, let me go ahead and in the interest of time, respond to this one whilst maybe people are just thinking and making up their mind. So yes, I understand. And as a researcher myself, we always face this struggle. We are there, we are anonymizing it, listen, but there's various aspects of data that we do not think about when we are so data hungry. The first thing is that, especially on the topic that we are talking about, which is violence against women, no matter how careful we are about not reminding people, not re-traumatizing people, not reminding people of their pains, every single question has the potential to be emotive, to re-traumatize, it could be just a simple question about how did you navigate this space? How did you navigate the issue at hand? You may think is it, but it has the potential. So because of that, especially in violence, in all research areas, I believe minimization, because a lot of the times we end up over collecting the data and thinking we might need it later, but we do not have the opportunity to use it. So we never really use it. So in all the cases, minimization is the way to go, but extremely more important in violence against women and girls. Remember, every issue you are going to bring about is sensitive. The second thing about data minimization is, even if it's just one more question, a lot of the time our advocacy opportunities, we are advocating for free. We are not even getting funded for it. When we get funded, funding is limited. So we do not go back and we do not deal with the issue of beneficiation. We do not deal with the issue of beneficiation. This is what benefit to the community is this study going to give, or to the participant is this study. Some of us try to give honorarium. Some of us try to give something for transportation, for data. We do not. So the minimization angle of it is that every single moment of the time of someone you are taking without actually compensating them adequately for it is worth too much. So we don't want you to go there with lengthy questionnaires because you think this is a one-shot opportunity for you to do this and then take up more time than you are with people who do not have a lot of time to give or time at all. The second issue about minimization we want to say, and that is why we focus so much on secondary data sources and showing you the UN Women portal and the rest. The risk is always that we always think, and I remember my research date, we always think this, we always think there is no data on something. We always, as researchers, the biggest challenge we feel is the lack of data. But coincidentally enough, we are living in an era, even in our countries who do not do surveys so frequently, of abundant data. So a lot of the time, when we do not minimize, we keep collecting data that probably already exists somewhere, or we could, instead of collecting, we could have gone to an administrative record. We talked about the government sources. We could have gone to the NGO that works on this issue and probably had that data. So yes, we want you to adhere to minimization as much as possible, and we do not want you to take data when you do not need it or use it. Okay, there are 3 questions in the chat, so I'll quickly go through them and then we'll take a 5-minute break. How can data strengthen my messages when engaging with leaders and policymakers? What partnership can help me access reliable data? How will I apply what I've learned to improve my advocacy impact? And are these my reflection questions or there? Yeah, this sounds like question I would be asking you. So how can data strengthen your advocacy message? We talked about the advocacy cycle. Data, both quantitative and qualitative, will let you know how serious the issue is. It will let you know who is affected by the issue. And when you talk to policymaker, you can talk from a concrete real life. The quantitative data will give policymakers an idea of the magnitude of the problem, and the qualitative data will give an idea of how this problem affects people. What kind of partnership? I believe being here, working with UN Women, being here is part of those kinds of positive partnership that will make sure you access reliable data. And how can what you have learned improve my advocacy impact? Well, I was about to ask you that question, so I'm not sure. And I think this is my questions, Yebu. What one action will I take immediately after this training? Titi, Nene, can I hand over to one of you to do the reflection activity?
You can take it.
Nene?
You can take it, so I can be able to manage the rest of technical aspects.
Or we can take our 5 minutes break now and come back for our reflection and our activity. Nene?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay, so we'll meet on 10 minutes after the hour. So it will be more like an 8 minutes break, and we'll meet then to discuss the reflection. So think about it a little. I'll leave it on the screen. Think about it whilst you are away, and we'll take a quick activity, practical activity on the demographic and health survey. We are starting now. Welcome back. You can show by an action, an emotion, a thumbs up, a heart if you are back with us.
Before we get started, could you please reassign me as interpreter? My assignment as interpreter dropped. This is Festus.
It may be your internet. Let me recheck again.
Okay, we are on time and we are running behind time, so I crave your indulgence. I'll proceed even if and as others join in. We really wanted this session to leave us with a practical tool set. For those of us who do not know it, in the comments, we saw a lot of us already know about the DHS program. But for those of us who do not know it, we have an advocacy issue on violence against women. We need some data, maybe cross-country or even country-specific on it to be able to tell a story, one convincing story to a policymaker, and we do not know where to get it. Where is an example of a data set we can easily get? So the DHS program is one of such data sets. It is the most comprehensive, to be honest, universal data set on health and SRHR, including questions on GBV, violence against women, and prevalence of many, many conditions. Now, the easiest way to access it is to Google in your Google box the DHS program. There's two ways we can use the DHS. Sorry about going to have to take this a little bit quickly, but I hope it helps. There's two ways we can use the DHS. We can either register as members of the DHS program and tell them we have an issue related to that. It's free and it's open source, but they will ask you about your interest. Why are you using the survey and why are you? So you just need to submit it and they will grant you access to. But that is the full databases. But if we don't want to do that option and download the full databases, we are not statisticians yet. We haven't done any content on actual analysis, which we might do in another session. So we just want to quickly use the DHS to tell a story on one issue. We can go to the website and go to the Start Compiler, which we can use on the page. So now when we click the Start Compiler page, so we go to the DHS website, we go to the data tab, which is here, if you can see my arrow, and under there we'll find the Start Compiler. When you click the Start Compiler list, you come to this page. Now on this page, the first thing you are required to show you all the table, what you can do a table, you can do a column chart, you can do a line chart, and for some indicators and for some variables, you can actually do a map. You see this page, the first thing you are supposed to do is choose a country. And here you are actually not restricted to one country. You can choose one country of interest, or you can choose a few countries here. So you click to choose your country. So as you can see here, I've gone to Southern Africa, I've filtered it by region, gone to Southern Africa, and I've chosen 5 countries, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, actually 6, Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho. Now, behind the country in the bracket, we see a number. That number indicates, so the DHS typically is done every 4 years, but as we know with data collection, it's not always consistent and guaranteed. So the number in the bracket will show you how many surveys a specific country has. So Botswana has 1 survey loaded, Eswatini has 1, Lesotho has 4, Namibia has 4, and South Africa has 2, which means that for Botswana, any data point we want, we can just analyze for one issue. For Namibia, for one period in time, which is one year's data collection. For Namibia, we have 4. So we choose the country, then we go again and we choose the indicator or the issues. So we can look at the indicators, all the common ones. The common ones will show you the list of indicators most people go and click. Don't give up if you don't see your issue there, because sometimes your issue, as much as you think is the biggest problem, is not one of the most common. People are looking for stunting rate, they are looking for child nutrition, they are looking for prevalence of diseases. So maybe your issue may not be there. So the way to make sure you check all the issues is to go to the complete list, and there you will go to the topic of interest. Women empowerment is there, communication is there, domestic violence is also there. You click the indicator you want to. Once more, here you can choose 1 or 2, and you okay it, and it will give you either a table when you leave it at the table, or you can move through. If you see my cursor, you can go to the next issue, which is a bar chart. If it's an issue with multiple data points and multiple years, you can do a line graph. And with the issues that have the geographic GPS and data associated with it, you can even actually do a map. You can literally draw a map of the region or the country and show how this issue is distributed. We are going to, sadly enough, end this exploration here because we do not have more time, but we hopefully will engage with you in another session where we can go a little bit more into details on analysis. I will hand over to Maureen and the team to take us through technologically facilitated violence. Whilst we are at it, please look at your review questions and respond to it in the chat. Let us know how this, we really want to know where else to go, what else we have to. So we want you to address these 2 questions. What specific opportunities in your current context will benefit from this approach? And what is one concrete action you will take in the next 30 days? We want you to use your knowledge immediately. We wanted to use it now. What can you do? And where in your advocacy work right now is there space to strengthen your message? You are doing advocacy for years. Where is it important for you to strengthen your messages with data? And what practical steps you will do to strengthen these messages you are already given? The other thing I would like to say before Maureen, sorry for eating into your time a little bit, is that we'll be sending you email because of the time delays and a few of the issues. We'll send you emails on a take-home assignment we want you to do, and potentially we'll invite you to join the WhatsApp group for the project where we will submit and share our assignments with each other. We just don't want your assignment to go to one person. We want to be peer evaluators of that assignment. The email will come with a list of clear instructions on what you are supposed to do, and then we'll probably break you out into groups that will be shared with you from Nene or the FemNet team. Thank you so much, Maureen. It's your audience.
Okay. Thank you so much, Coletta. That was really so fantastic. We've seen you've taken us through the data and all the segments of the data. I hope people have learned something. If you've learned something, I know you can engage somehow well, or even better with data. Just get us some emojis on the team as we get the slides for technology facilitated violence. Good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing all that. So Nena, you can get us the slides. Thank you. Now, we all know that we have so much and so many forms of violence. And what we wanted to do today in this teaching session is to try and connect the data to forms of violence, and then how do they even match. So we decided to take an example of one emerging form called technology facilitated violence. And you're looking at, when you talk about technology facilitated violence, then we also think about AI, and then we link it to ending violence against girls and women. So this is what we will be looking at, and in just a very simple terms, or rather very basic terms, we want to look at what is this we are talking about. Next slide, Nene. So by the end of this session, and we are going to also share with you these materials, you can use them in your organizations to also have small sessions of whatever we did today. We are looking at what is technology facilitated violence, then we look at the forms, the tasks. We shall look at a bit of AI, and then we will finish with the practical actions. What can we do as women rights organization? Next. So I know we've heard about technology facilitated violence, and I know we all have definitions, but for today, we look at this definition as violence that is committed, assisted, aggravated, or amplified through digital technologies and platforms. You'll realize that technology is not actually the offender, but it is used, or the violence is committed, assisted, aggravated, or amplified through digital technologies and platform. It can be perpetuated by all these people, the peers, strangers, groups, coordinated networks. We shall look at that. So we also look at it as often overlapped with offline violence. It may start online and then it spills over to offline violence and escalate quickly due to speed and scale of digital sharing. So the key point here we want to look at is TFGBV, or technology facilitated violence, is not less serious. People see it as something that is not, something that we don't need to have a lot of keen interest in because it happens online. But the whole thing is about the harm that it brings to the lives of the people who are affected. And the harm can really be long lasting. So that's why it becomes quite very important. Next, Nene. These are some of the forms. You've heard about online harassment and threats. You've heard about cyber stalking and surveillance. You've heard about non-consensual sharing of intimate images. It happens a lot. So with those are how they are categorized, like image-based abuse. We've had coercion and blackmail using sexual content, doxing, impersonation, and fake accounts. We've seen all these things happening, but now they narrow down to, sexual violence, hate speech, and coordinated pile-on. AI enable abuses like the deepfakes and the voice cloning. So all these are happening, and I'm sure in one way or another, you've heard about them and you've seen. And if possible, if you have a situation that you can give an example about in your country, the chat is there. You can always share, and we'll be glad to share with everybody else. Next. We have so many ways. These are just few examples of how this is carried out. We know one major one that you can see in most of our countries is targeted via social media, messaging app, emails, gaming platforms. Then we have account takeovers, like you'll hear someone's account has been hacked and then it is used to perpetrate all this. Location tracking, someone following you through, someone is always looking, passive control, like he has to know where you are, what are you doing at what point. So all these are how it is carried out. Then we have mass reporting to silence activists, reporting brigading, like they know very well, maybe you are talking about some rights, then people are reporting that page. And after some time, that the providers will be able to pull it down. Public shaming and reputational attack. So all this. Now, why does it spread fast? Low cost to perpetrators. It's easier and cheap to do this. High reach and virality. It goes viral very fast. Then anonymity and pseudonymity. They won't know who is actually doing it. So it's very difficult for you to follow and really know who is doing this. So it becomes very easy and it spread very fast. Then platform amplify engagement. So we have these platforms that can amplify, there is a platform, if this is posted, then everybody else, East Africa will know, West will know, South will know, everybody will know what is happening. So that's why it spread quite so fast. Next. Now, how is it related to women and girls? For women, we know very well that the effect is more huge on women and girls, journalists, young women online. So psychological harm is here, fear, stress, anxiety, social harm is there, isolation, stigma, economic harm is there. You can lose your job out of this, reduce income, chilling effect, silencing women voices, right? And then risk escalation. So these are some of the direct impacts that happen when we have TFV on women and girls. Next. Now, AI. How AI can intensify this? We have deepfakes. I had talked about it. This is purely AI. AI generated at times sexual images, videos without consent. Then you have the voice cloning. Your voice is being used to do something or to say something that honestly, that's not yourself, but AI can do it and do it very well. AI personification right now, you know, that one happens a lot. To humiliate and extort. Then we have automated harassment, the bots, and rapid scaling of abuse. Then we have AI-assisted doxing, finding, assembling, all this. So you can see how AI many times it works very closely to amplify what we are talking about. Next. How AI and digital tools can help end violence. We have these examples. For interest of time, I'm really moving so fast so that we are able. So we have detection and moderation support. We have detection and moderation support. We have safer reporting pathways. We have survivor information and referral charts, analyzing patterns to inform prevention policy and resources. So what we are trying to say here is that AI and digital tools are not entirely bad, but they can still be used to help end violence. And these are some of the ways that this can happen. So when we use AI in this manner, then we are able to counter what is happening where AI is being used to perpetrate violence. Next slide. So we have some of the approaches that UN Women has been highlighting on prevention. And we look at issues such as the law policies. We look at the improve data and evidence. Now, I want to emphasize a bit of something on data and evidence. And that's why today we were having this teaching session where we look at the measurement, we look at the documentation and the research. Now, why is data important here? I want to give you an example that, for example, when we don't use data, then this violence cannot pop out and it cannot enter the presence of attention that it requires. We need to look at the data in that we need to see like how many women are being violated through this. We also need to look at which tech companies, like is it TikTok, where are they, which spots is more the casualty are happening? Is it TikTok? Is it Facebook? Is it email and all that, so that these people can be held accountable? So data becomes very, very important. The problem we have right now in most of our African countries, we are still struggling with the policies to safeguard the online space, to make it safe for all of us. But now, without data, that one cannot go forth, because we all know in policy and in advocacy that we learned today, data becomes very fundamental as a reason why this has to happen, or rather an evidence that shows that this matter is important and it requires some level of attention. So the data, when you talk about improved data, it becomes very important, because the technology facilitated violence has been an invisible attack, but data will make it more visible and it will make more people know that this is happening. So I just wanted to re-emphasize that. Then we have transforming social norms and digital system. It's very important. We have to transform, like in education, accountability platform responsibilities, and then ensure survivor-centered services are there, like the support, legal aid, psychological care. You see, it's violence happening in another space which is new to us. So we ask ourselves, what does support look like? How do we support those people who are casualties? And then amplify women leadership and digital resilience. So these are very important, and these are some of the takeaways I'll take in that you can go home with. We will not just say that technology facilitated violence is here, but we have solutions, and some of the solutions highlighted by the UN Women are as outlined. Next slide as I finish. Next slide. Yeah, we won't go so much on context today, but of course, this context we are looking at East and Southern Africa. But I know here we are almost the continental, we have West, we have North. Then what are some of the issues? We look at the rapid growth of mobile social media. Then we look at intersecting inequalities. All these intersecting inequalities affect the risk and access to support. We look at legal and policy frameworks. I think I've talked about it. It's still a work in progress, and we need to push that agenda so that we are safe and the legal and policy frameworks are covering girls and young women from such violence. Then we have frontline groups. We have to make sure that activists, journalists, young women who face heightened attack are protected, and they also know how to safeguard themselves by some of the information that we are sharing here, by making sure that online safety is something that can be accessed by everyone, and people can know how to protect themselves when they have an online attack. Next. Next again. Yeah, quick digital safety checks. We know we've been talking about this in your organizations, things like your password, turn on multi-factor MFA, review privacy settings, be careful with links, watch for phishing, document incidents, like the screenshots, the URLs, and then report or block a platform. So all these things, we have to have them quickly as our safeguarding tools that can safeguard us and can help us when we are engaging online to safeguard ourselves. Next. Yeah, we were to do the case discussions, but these are things that still we can do. You people, you can do. While we will be sharing with you this, you can try within your organization so that you see to what extent are you also including the safety and the AI in your own programming, because that's where we are supposed to gear into, including all this in our programming as we move. It is here with us, and there is no way we can just say it's not working. So this was just a case study, but you can use it back, you can take it, you can use it back to just try and outline what does it look like. Next. Yeah, we are also sharing some suggested resources that you can use. We have the UN strategy on preventing elimination of violence. We have the brief analysis on how AI is excavating. We have the global trends, the good practices, compendium on prevention. We have the UN repository work. Then finally, we have the regional update for UN Women, Africa on Digital Violence Initiative. All this, there are things you can use as resource tools to be able to reinforce all this work, and also to conjoin it to the data that we were just able to sharpen our knowledge over. Next. Okay, this is also a discussion prompt, but we may not do it today in the interest of time. We know we are already into our time. So all these are things they are resources, we can leave them for you. When you go back to your organization, you can work on it. What one action your organization can take in the next 30 days. We shall be very glad if you can share the same with us, because we will continue following it up. And then it will be our pleasure to be able to depict or actually to connect each other for those who are trying to do something in this area with the resources on technology, facilitated violence, and AI. So please, this one is a prompt discussion that you can as well take home. Next. Thank you. Thank you so much. Please keep giving us, or rather suggesting, if you have more questions, you can put them on the chat. However, we are really into our time. We didn't anticipate this will be interesting to this extent, but it was interesting. And we are glad that we were able to move together from the time we started. Both the people who are here on Zoom one-on-one, and also this is being live streamed on our YouTube channel. So we also have another bigger team at the YouTube channel, and we have us here. So I think I'll just give in maybe like 2 questions. Okay, there is a question. There is a question I can see. Nene, you can help us with that question. We can react to like 2 questions, and then we will beg to leave. However, this one is a conversation that has just started. Yeah, I can also see Ibra's hand is up. Probably we can start with Ibra, now that his hand is up, and then you can get us 2 questions, Nene, as we wrap up. Go ahead, Ibra.
Bonjour. Tout d'abord, mes remerciements à toute l'équipe. On est vraiment ravi de participer à cette discussion qui est extrêmement importante dans le cadre de notre travail de plaidoyer, puisque les données, c'est extrêmement important, puisque ça participe à la crédibilité et à la fidélité des informations que nous donnons pour faire bouger les lignes. Bon, j'aimerais tout simplement savoir si il y a possibilité de nous envoyer le module, les différents diapos que nous avons reçus ici. Ça nous permettra vraiment de revoir effectivement ce qui a été fait et essayer de l'appliquer dans le cadre de nos activités. Merci.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ibra, for your good question. Yes, we are here to share everything. So we will be able to package all this back to your emails as you are able to, back to your emails. We'll also suggest if you can join community of other organizations doing some work on ending violence against girls and women and data. So all this you will be able to choose what you think is good for you or what you need for this time. But we are going to share all these materials with you. Thank you so much. There is a question from Patience. Yes, Patience. Patience's hand is up. I don't know whether she can hear me. Okay, Nene, can we get 2 last questions?
Yeah, when I go to the table, it's just the reflection to the participants. No question for now, but the last one, she's asking, what are we feeling in terms of uploading AI, and how ethically measure the AI usage in our advocacy work? If there is any possibility where we can create also escalate risk without being outside in terms of our advocacy work, managing AI and advocacy work. Yeah, that's the question.
Unfortunately, Nene, you were breaking at some point, so I didn't hear that question quite well. I'm trying to locate this question from the chat. Can you come again, Nene? I'm sorry.
now, right? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So, how are we using the AI and technology tools ourselves as people working on sensitive violence against women issues and data, and how we can reduce the risk because it's advocacy and also the AI?
Thank you. Thank you. That's very clear. Thank you for that question. And it's a very good question for all of us. For sure, it's coming out that we can't run away from technology. We have to align with technology. So we use AI, and we use AI also to advance the kind of work that we are doing. And that's why we gave the example of how can we use some of the AI tools to advance ending violence against girls and women. I can give you an example of some work that was done in Southern America with some small women rights organization, whereby they were able to develop an AI that follows on court proceedings and is able to see how the judges are able to finish the cases on violence against girls and women, specifically sexual violence. So it will narrow down even to know particular judge, how does these cases go while this person is handling them. And that one would reduce the issue of biases within the judiciary system in that country. And they were able to actually, more justice will be realized. That's just an example of how we can use it. We can as well use it to communicate things out there, to do our content which are pro the work that we are doing. So all these are ways, I'm just giving an example of ways that we can easily use AI to be able to protect and also to be able to support ending violence against girls and women. There are several ways we can do that. But even right now, if you go read about all these materials that we'll be sharing, you will see how it has been used even in the current situation. So other than that, I would want us to stop here because the time is really out of our estimated time. And I just want to thank you, all of you, for coming. For sure, this one is a conversation that has just started. We will want to engage you more as we continue. We will have more teaching sessions. We graciously appreciate our partner and the EM 2030 team who have helped us a lot in curating of this session. And today they were here and they have done a very good presentation. They will be sharing with us all the great materials they have that we can use in our communities. I would also want to appreciate our members from FemNet who have joined here, the members from ACT Partners, East and Southern Africa. I know you are here. We really appreciate you. All the members, the partners that we work with across the regions. Also the FemNet Secretariat staff who are able to join here with us. We really appreciate you. We also appreciate our interpreters who made sure that this space is more accommodative to all of us and language is not going to be a barrier at any point. So we thank you for being with us through this time. And also our partners, the UN Women, even if they're not here, we really appreciate them for having supported us as well to be able to reach out to you with this teaching session, the UN Women and the EU colleagues. So we thank you so much and we wish you all the best. And we're looking forward for a conversation that I've just started to be taken up again and again. So look forward for more invitations and we shall be discussing this as we move on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Merci, merci.
Cheers, take care.
Grand
Merci
merci à
tous.
vous aussi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.